Good morning, Morgan, and good morning to any of Morgan's friends that are sitting in on this video. In today's video, video 22, we're going to be talking about tuples and sequences. Okay, and we're going to go through 3 different examples, and we're hopefully at the end of the video you'll have a better understanding for what a tuple is. Okay, all right, and here's a great analogy for a tuple that I came up with. It's a group of cars that have people in it. Okay, so in the tuple, whatever member is in the tuple, there's also a value in that member or people. Okay, all right. So in example 1, we're going to talk a little bit more about tuples. In example 2, we're going to talk about immutability in regards to tuples, and what that means is that once you create a tuple, you can't modify or delete information from that object. Okay? All right. And then in example 3, we're going to be talking about tuple packing and sequence unpacking. And this is about how to get around the immutability bit about tuples. Now, if you're wondering why they would make it immutable, it's very simple. It's about how information is stored in the computer and how quickly it can be recalled. Okay, and that's why tuples are immutable. It's something deep in the code, and if you ever get far enough along in your programming talents, maybe one day you'll be able to write your own computer language. But for right now, we have to do what this guy wants us to do. All right? All right. So with that, let's finish up here and let's go over and let's read the manual. All right? All right. All right. Now time for the boring part. Let's read the manual.
Python Training Video 22, Tuples and Sequences. We saw that lists and strings have many common properties, such as indexing and slicing operations. They are 2 examples of sequence data types. See sequence types, list, tuple, range. Since Python is an evolving language, other sequence data types may be added. There is also another standard sequence data type, the tuple. A tuple consists of a number of values separated by commas. For instance, T equals 12,345, 54,000.
Okay, so we're creating a tuple, which is just a single car, okay, and with 3 passengers, and then we can figure out which passenger we want to take out, okay, and in this case, what we're doing is we're putting the tuple inside another tuple. Okay, now there are 2 cars in this tuple. There's T, which has 3 values, and there's this one, which has 5 values, or people. Okay, we print it out. Here's the first car, here's the second car. Okay, here it talks about how it's immutable. Okay, so if we try to go and change the value of the first member of the T tuple, it's going to go, you can't do that. Okay. However, it can contain objects that are mutable that can change. In this case, 2 lists. Okay. So this tuple has 2 cars in it, and in those cars have 3 people in the car. Okay, but the difference is because this is a list in the tuple, not a tuple in the tuple, you can change those values. All right? Okay. All right, so with that, let's continue.
As you see, on-output tuples are always enclosed in parentheses, so that nested tuples are interpreted correctly. They may be input with or without surrounding parentheses, although often parentheses are necessary anyway, if the tuple is part of a larger expression. It is not possible to assign to the individual items of a tuple However, it is possible to create tuples which contain mutable objects, such as lists. Though tuples may seem similar to lists, they are often used in different situations and for different purposes. Tuples are immutable, and usually contain a heterogeneous sequence of elements that are accessed via unpacking, see later in this section, or indexing, or even by attribute in the case of name tuples. Lists are mutable, and their elements are usually homogeneous and are accessed by iterating over the list.
Okay, let's talk about homogeneous and heterogeneous, what that means. Okay, when they talk about homogeneous, that means that every person in the car is the same object type. In other words, numeric or string. When they say heterogeneous, they mean you could have an integer with a string with something other type of data type inside the tuple. Okay, you can't do that with a list. Lists, they all have to be the same data type. Okay, all right, and let's go ahead and let's move on to the next little bit.
The statement T equals 12,345, 54,321, hello, is an example of tuple packing. The values 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and hello are packed together in a tuple. The reverse operation is also possible.
Okay, so what they're going to do now is they're taking the people in the car and they're throwing them out. Okay, and this data type is just a variable. It's nothing. It's not special. Okay, so it's creating one variable for every member in the tuple. Okay, now let's go ahead and read on.
This is called, appropriately enough, sequence unpacking and works for any sequence on the right-hand side. Sequence unpacking requires that there are as many variables on the left side of the equal sign as there are elements in the sequence.
Okay, that's simply saying if you've got 3 members in the tuple, you better have 3 variables waiting for them. If there's a 4th member, it's going to give you some sort of an error. Okay, that's all that means.
Note that multiple assignment is really just a combination of tuple packing and sequence unpacking.
Okay, I don't like the way they describe it, but okay, if they want to talk about sequence unpacking, just to me it seems like they're trying to talk about another type of object, and we're not talking about another object. We're talking about a tuple object and how we're manipulating the information out of it. Okay, all right. Well, enough of my complaining. Let's go ahead and let's get back to our example code, run the code, and then let's talk about the output. All right, let's get this done. All right, here we are in the output of the code. So let's just walk through it. What does it do? Okay, from that last little bit of reading, you see we've got the tuple. We're creating this tuple. We print the tuple. Sure enough, there it is. We got it. Now we want to print what the first member is. Boom, we're able to do that. Now here's an example of the nesting of the tuples. Okay, where we've got 2 tuples in one bigger tuple. All right, and that's example 1. All right. Now you can pause the video and contemplate this before we go on to the next one at any time. That's what's great about online learning versus in-person learning. You can always stop and replay. Okay, which is, I think, well, for me anyway, it's very beneficial. All right, now let's talk about example 2. What are we talking about? The immutability of the tuple. Okay, well, we know that if we want to be able to store data in a tuple that is mutable, we have to use a list. And what's the thing about losing the list? The list, it all has to be the same type of data. You can't have mixed strings and variables. Right. All right. Now let's move to the end. Tuple packing. It should just say tuple packing and unpacking and not even bother introducing this word sequence. Frickin' English majors. All right. So what are we doing here? All right. The first example, I really didn't go over it because I think this is pretty stupid. This is how you create a tuple that doesn't have any members in it. Okay, and how do we know that it has no members? Because we're asking it when we say length, we're going like, how many objects you got in there? How many passengers do you have in the car? We don't have any passengers. Oh, 0. Now we create another tuple, but this thing only has one person in the car, and to make it work, we have to put the little comma. Okay, then we use the len function. How many people in the tuple? 1. Got it. Good. Now, if we did the same thing with t, the number 3 would come out. Okay? All right. Now, here's that tuple again with the 2 variables in the string. Okay? Let's print it. Boom. There we go. Now we want to unpack it. But we're not putting it into a tuple. We're putting it into a variable, something that we can modify. All right? So that's what we're doing, and here, sure enough, it worked. Now, what you would do to get around the immutability is, now that you've separated them out into their own little variables, you modify, manipulate them however you want, and then you recreate the tuple. It's immutable, but you've changed what's in the tuple. It's like 5 lines of code. Not a big deal. Anyway, that completes today's video, and I'll see you in the next one. So go out and have fun. Looks like today's a good day to go to the pool. It's sunny out. You should do that. All right. Anyway, talk to you later. Bye.